Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Today, we have a special show here. Today, we are joined by a very special guest here. Today, I am reunited on the show with Dale O Donnell from Stretty News. So, Dale was back on this podcast on day one when we actually first started, when we were just doing lives on Twitter. So, Dale was here in the early days of the show, and he's come back today. Dale, it's been kind of, I suppose, a long time since I spoke to you. I think the last time me and you actually spoke kind of about Manchester United on a podcast or just in general was before the Leicester game, the last game of the season. Last season, I think that's the last time we spoke on a podcast, wasn't it? I think that was last.
It's different times. I think if we were speaking about the season that just started, we would have been a lot more optimistic than we are right now. The end of last season, I suppose, was lots of positives, and we had a difficult summer. Solskjaer didn't get all the players that he wanted, and the season has started poorly. And I think we can talk about recruitment, but we also need to look at his decisions and tactics and the way we set up. And in games at home, it hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, like I think when we last spoke, it was around the Leicester game, and there was a lot. As you said, we had myself and yourself. We had a lot of optimism kind of coming into this season because we're on a really good run after the lockdown last season, and it looked like with the players that we were linked with at that point, we thought we were going to get them in, and also we thought we'd bring that form into this season, which just hasn't materialized. We seem to be very on a very bad run of form at the moment, and it's shown recently, that the system isn't working. Dale, like the first thing I'd like to come to you tonight on about is Paul Pogba. Now, obviously, this is a player who always defies opinion, no matter kind of, I suppose, what he does in a Manchester United shirt or what he does in kind of anything else in his football career. But at the moment, he's under a lot of scrutiny with Manchester United recently because of his comments again, saying it's a dream to play for Real Madrid. And again, he's saying this at a time where he's not on the best run of form, and he's really playing it. He's stinking out Old Trafford at the moment, like. In your opinion, Dale, like what do you make of this whole kind of Paul Pogba situation in terms of his form and his recent comments and kind of just where Manchester United stand with Paul at the moment?
I think the last 4 years, not much has changed. Paul Pogba came back to Manchester United on a high, spoke about coming back home, and that was very short-lived. You talk about coming back home, we talk about coming in as a superstar, mega money move, and we haven't seen the player that would justify that kind of transfer fee. Callum just asked there how much realistically would he be sold for. I think realistically, if you're talking about potential buying clubs, Manchester United will not get the money they paid for him. And that's a problem. He talks about dreaming of playing for Real Madrid. He said that days after we lost, we got hammered against Spurs. That's a total lack of disrespect, a lack of respect even. You look at Pogba, he plays for Manchester United. I don't care if you play for Crystal Palace. They're your current employers, and you have to show respect. And if you're not pulling your weight in the pitch, you're not only disrespecting the badge you wear, disrespecting the fans that sing your name, fans that usually pay a lot of money to go to games. I know fans aren't going to games now, but I'm pretty sure if they were at games, they would be definitely letting their opinions known to a certain French midfielder who's not pulling his weight and never has in a Manchester United shirt. And it's getting to the stage now where before I wouldn't have pointed my finger at him. I would have said, look, give benefit of doubt, good player, world-class player. He will come good. It hasn't happened. And I think I'm finished hoping that he's going to turn it around. He doesn't want to. He wants to be playing elsewhere, and it's as clear as day. And Solskjaer, if he doesn't show a bit of courage in decisions and show his authority as manager, he's the one that's going to be gone before the end of the season.
Yeah, and like I think Ollie now is at a point now where he does have to, I suppose, as you said, show a bit of courage, show a bit of bottling. He has a very big decision to make in terms of his choices in midfield because we do have kind of a lot of options in midfield, and it seems at the moment Paul Pogba is just getting in there off reputation rather than current form. Like you have a midfielder in there in Fred in the last couple of weeks. He's been outstanding, and kind of even last season again he was one of our, I suppose, standout performers in a season that was up and down. But Fred's been, I'd say in the last 12 months, he's been a player who has really caught the eye in a Manchester United shirt. Again,
I think on that, Keane, I don't think he pulls up trees, Fred. But what I will say is I agree with your statement because he tries. And when you see a player play for Manchester United, Scott McTominay, he's not Verratti. But you need players like that when you start them, they're going to give it all. And if not Pochettino, he's on my mind. If Pogba put in his all, we wouldn't be complaining about him after a bad performance here and there. Look at Bruno Fernandes. Even when he plays poorly, he still contributes, still puts in tackles, still runs up and down the pitch. And Pogba, I just don't see that work rate. When you play bad, when things aren't going your way, put in a bit of effort at least. Contribute something, work rate, something. Pogba doesn't do that. And people can say, oh, he's not that type of player and he's maybe not the player United fans thought they were getting. I don't care. Show a bit of work. Show a bit of determination in games against Arsenal, you're jogging back to win the ball back. That's a rivalry. Get back and put a tackle in. He doesn't do that, and that's why it's actually, it looks like when Roy Keane speaks about Pogba and other former players, Brian Robson also slated him this season. They're players that look at him and the big money he's on, and when they played, they weren't anywhere near that money. And I suppose it is a bit offensive that he's there not pulling his weight and walking around like he's a Rolls Royce, and he's nowhere near. He doesn't lace Keane's boots, Paul Scholes' boots. Previous midfielders, you look at star players that played for United. Pogba is such a disappointment. He can do it. Keane, we know he can do it. He's a World Cup medal in his back pocket. Why isn't he doing it? He has to ask himself that, because I think he could be doing a lot better than what he is.
Yeah, and it boggles my mind really, because he goes off for France, and again, he even in the last international break, he was playing worldly passes. He was getting into the 6-yard box, so he's contributing and looked like he was putting a shift in. But in the United shirt, he just doesn't do it, and it just doesn't make sense. Now, Pogba FC will come at me and they'll say he has this player around him, he has that player around him. But look, at the end of the day, I've been one of Pogba's biggest supporters since he's been at the club. But one thing I will say is that he doesn't put 100% in the Man United shirt, and that's recognisable. I think we spoke about this before the lockdown kind of lifted, and we were talking about the Premier League coming back. You said it rightly that Bruno Fernandes was making a show of him in a Manchester United shirt. Like in the short amount of time that Bruno was at the club, you could see he was doing what Paul Pogba should have been doing 4 years ago when he signed for the club, and he's not doing that. And and again, I think Paul Pogba is a player. I think this summer we need to cut our ties with him, because again, I think that what I called it the other day is the Paul Pogba experiment has failed. I think as a club we need to admit that the experiment has failed.
Yeah, and I can understand too Solskjaer as a manager with the opportunity to manage and to be over a World Cup winner. You want to do what you can to make it work. And I've mentioned already, but I think Solskjaer needs to come to reality now that it's not working. You look last season when we were without Paul Pogba when he was injured, and you mentioned Fred and I mentioned McTominay. They're players that rose up to that responsibility while he was out. And if you look back to the run of form we were in, we were winning games quite convincingly. You can have a team of stars, but you need chemistry. You need a team that works. And I'm beyond the point now of believing that Paul Pogba is the best for Manchester United. He's clearly not. I'm looking at Donny van de Beek, and I think a player there that if he plays, he will try. Pogba, like I said, I'm finished with him. I think for the better of our results, Paul Pogba doesn't play.
Yeah, like I think you look at the balance of the team, and as you said, like Fred, McTominay, they bring balance. Whether they might be the most talented player in the world, and they mightn't play they might be playing like, I suppose Hollywood passes in midfield. Like, do you know what I mean? They don't do that. But what they do is they provide defensive solidity in the midfield, and they give the likes of Bruno Fernandes more responsibility in the attack. They're like, look, we have you covered, Bruno. You don't need to be running up and down the pitch. So you do what you need to do. Create chances. Get on the ball. And we've seen that last season when Bruno came in, he didn't have to do what he's doing at the start of this season. Like, he looks absolutely knackered, because he's not only doing the attacking midfielder's job, but he's also playing nearly as a 6. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's doing absolutely everything. Now, again, look, I think that's affecting his attacking play, and I think all that work rate he's taking on may be affecting it. But as you said, he's still contributing. He's still scoring goals. He's still getting assists, and he's putting in a shift every game, which does matter. Dale, one thing I'd like to come to you on, I didn't get a chance to speak to you since the game Sunday. Like, I know we lost against Arsenal the weekend, and it was a game that, to a lot of United fans, including myself, it really stung, that loss, because we were on it back for a 5-0 win against Leipzig, and that was a fantastic win in the Champions League, and we're all on a high, and we thought we turned the corner. But then again, as it's been kind of since the 18 months, 2 years of Solskjaer's reign, we come up against a low block and we fail to break it down, and it's same old. Like, what do you make it? What did you make of the game Sunday, and like how do you feel after the performance?
Deflated. I was very optimistic after the Leipzig win. Who wasn't? Not only the Leipzig win, but we also put away PSG again convincingly. Our form in Europe has been good, and then we go up against an Arsenal team, and by the way, Arsenal are a great team. I think that's what really hurt, is that we lost to them in such a manner that in the past few years, Ferguson, in Ferguson's final few years, when he really brushed away Wenger, there was this approach that Arsenal were a weak team, and we could really, if we went in hard, we'd hurt them and they'd shy away. That completely went out the window against Arsenal the weekend. We didn't do that. From the very start, they were winning every tackle, and they were actually doing to us what we used to do to them. And it looked like the two new signings, Gabriel, who should have been sent off, and Partey, who was brilliant. They made such a difference. They made such a difference. And I know Pogba is a different midfielder. I don't want to keep pinpointing him, but he was so poor. Surely he can look at Thomas Partey and see a player that's come in and is doing a job and is contributing positively to his team. Is he not looking in the mirror and saying, why can't I do that? Because the game against Arsenal, it was one of the low points of Solskjaer's reign so far. It was a team completely not united. That's not a united team to me, what we've seen the weekend. They were running around with the tails between their legs. And it's embarrassing to lose that manner against this Arsenal team. This Arsenal team isn't one of the best in the league. It's not an awful team, but it's not a shadow on what they were. And we could say the same thing about ourselves quite clearly.
Yeah, like we were a shadow of a team, and like you look at the formation that we played, the 4-2-2 diamond, 4-4-2 diamond. Like that was a formation that worked fantastically well against a Leipzig team that's going to come out and to attack against us. Like I think all should have seen from the first 20 minutes what Arsenal were going to do in terms of low block, and I think there should have been, and he should have acted a bit more quickly in terms of the tactical approach that he took, because you've seen a player like Scott McTominay, and know we've been high of praise of him since the start of the show. But you've seen early on in that game, he was playing right centre field of a diamond, but he kept coming into Fred's area. And again, for the overall balance and the overall play, that was affecting it. There should have been instructions. There should have been, I suppose, if not a change to the formation, but the instructions to say, look, you need to stick to your role. Because one thing I noticed, and I just want to praise for a moment, is Mikel Arteta on Sunday. That man was on the sideline for the full 90 minutes, and you could hear him. Like, I watched the game with no commentary on Sky Sports Premier League. I like to hear what the managers are saying, if you can hear it on the telly, like, because it's always good to hear insight and instructions, especially managers who are very kind of good tactically. And to hear kind of the see Arteta, he's very animated on the sideline, kind of guiding players through the game almost. And then one thing that kind of didn't sit well was Ollie was sitting on the kind of in his hot seat, kind of on the iPad for the game. And I know I felt kind of uninspired by that. I don't know what you thought about that. Did you kind of look too much into it?
Look, there's different philosophies. I know Louis van Gaal wasn't the most vocal most of the time on the sidelines. He kind of believed that once he spoke to the players that was his message, and he didn't want to change that. And every manager has their own ways. I do think that there's definitely more Solskjaer could be doing on the sideline. If the first 5 minutes aren't going your way, first 10, 15 minutes, you need to be out there. You need to be changing something. You need to... Look, I'm not a football manager. We're not qualified to tell Solskjaer exactly what to be doing, but I do think more should be done. There's definitely players that could be rollicked 15, 20 minutes in. It has to be done. If things aren't going as planned, you need to act. And maybe Solskjaer hasn't wanted to do that just yet, but it's getting to the stage now where I think he is under pressure. And if he sees stages and games where things aren't going his way, he's naive not to change it. Because I don't want Solskjaer sacked, by the way. I need to make that very clear. I don't want to see managers sacked and going into these circles, the circus even, like, of chopping and changing managers and being at the same situation we were in 2 years ago. Can you say United have really progressed? I think that I think the team itself is a lot more likable. I think Solskjaer has done well to get rid of certain players. I think his recruitment has been good. I think he's got in better players than what we had, but there hasn't been enough of that. I think we stalled and we were idle for a lot of this summer, and we panicked at the end and we rushed in certain players. That's not preparation. We already knew before this season that there wasn't going to be a pre-season because of the pandemic. So I think it was even more important for Solskjaer to get in his players early and to map out a plan of what he had. And he didn't get to do that. And I think no one had preparation this season. Liverpool sitting on top, but they've been inconsistent. They haven't been as consistent as they were last season. So I was only saying last week, the league is there for the taking. If a team wants to be consistent, they can go and win a title this year. Liverpool have lost Van Dijk. It's there for the taking, but for Manchester United, we're talking about nearly 2 months into the season, and we're already talking that we're not going to be in a title race, and that in itself is a failure for Solskjaer. He's definitely got he has a squad that is capable of a lot better. Our home form has been atrocious, and unless he fixes that quickly, he could be out of a job by Christmas.
Yeah, like he's under immense pressure right now. And I suppose before we look ahead to obviously the Istanbul game, which is a very big talking point to go coming into this week, obviously since you've alluded to that Solskjaer is under pressure, I'd like to ask if we've just addressed the elephant in the room. Mauricio Pochettino was live on Monday Night Football last night, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was good to hear about his kind of time at Southampton and Spurs, and he was very kind of insightful yesterday. But since Pochettino has been on Monday Night Football, speculation has kind of ramped up, and so a lot of fans are clamouring for Mauricio Pochettino to take over as Manchester United manager from Ollie, whether that's now or kind of just whenever the end of the season or whatever. There's massive calls for Mauricio to become manager. Like, what do you make of this whole Mauricio Pochettino talk? Do you think is it premeditated? Like, is it too early to be kind of calling for Ollie's head now in terms of bringing Poch in now kind of mid-season?
Well, football is based on results, and if Solskjaer doesn't pick up the results, he will be fired, and it's as straightforward as that. I don't really want to be in a situation where Woodward is going to be picking the next manager. It might be straightforward that it's Pochettino, but Woodward needs to be held responsible for how many managers he's picked and how many managers he's fired. The elephant in the room, it's clearly Ed Woodward. We can talk about firing Solskjaer if results don't pick up, but he's still in his role. He's still at fault for a lot of things that have happened in recent years, and he's not been held responsible for that. So Manchester United can fire Solskjaer, they can bring in Pochettino, but the issue is still there. The issue, they're not going to automatically just start backing the manager the way they should, the way they can. The way a club like Manchester United, with the revenue, the money we bring in every year, maybe if it wasn't spent on dividends to the Glazers, they used the pandemic as an excuse this summer. But there was no talk about how much money they took out previously over dividends last year. I know it's their club. They own the club and they can take out dividends as much as they wish. But they haven't given an interview to a media outlet in 15 years since they took over the club. They did a small one with MUTV. That doesn't count. That's the official channel of the club. Yeah, they pick what questions they were being asked there. Joe Glazer did, and he wouldn't have answered any question he didn't want to answer, and that's wrong. We've tried with Stretty News to get something in the past few years, and they're not willing to talk. I'm not surprised, and they're never going to talk to us because they never have. And the questions that we want asked will never be answered. We can see it's broad daylight robbery what's going on at this club. And the right people are not in charge of the big decisions. It's an absolute insult to what the empire in which Sir Alex Ferguson built, that it's being thrown away by greed. And at the end of the day, I'm a football fan / journalist, and I have to be objective and say it how I see it. And I'm not happy. I don't see things changing, and I think Manchester United are stuck in the mud. And it could be another 5-6 years that we're looking at. It could be even longer. Solskjaer will come and go. Pochettino could be next in. He'll come and go. It's a vicious cycle. And unfortunately, I see Manchester United right now as a poison chalice for any manager.
Yeah, and you've hit the nail on the head there. I think like with this model in the last 7 years, Dale, it's been all about being content with getting Champions League football. Like we've seen when Van Gaal got Champions League, again, not fully backed. Look at Jose Mourinho, finished for our highest points tally. Post Alex Ferguson with 81 points, finished second league behind a very good Manchester City team. That should have been the catalyst for us to kick on and try get push for a title challenge. No, again we didn't get that. Ollie finished third after clawing back a 14-point swing. Let's get it right. He was 14 points behind Leicester, who were in third at that time. Didn't back him. And again, this club are just ultimately content once they get Champions League football. That's it. Like they're happy. They've got that. They've got that money, and they're just more than happy to sit there and take their dividends. And at the end of the day, it makes me sick.
The other side of it too, we could spend an hour speaking about the Glazers and how bad they're running the club, but that's been the case since 2005. It's not new. And when Sir Alex Ferguson was manager, we won league titles. I know he's an exception. He was the greatest manager of all time, but it does tell you that it is somewhat possible. But I do look at Solskjaer and look at the end of last season. He did do a good job, and I think a lot of people, when they're talking about him right now, they're very disrespectful to and forgetting what he did last season and how he turned things around last season. And I know things aren't going well right now, but you can't just point the finger at Solskjaer. Just like you can't just point the finger when things went wrong for Mourinho or Van Gaal or even David Moyes. He should never have been appointed in the first place. But what I'm trying to say is there's so much more wrong with Manchester United. These people calling for just Solskjaer's head. They're not looking at the
bigger picture, yeah.
No, they're not looking at the big picture. And there's a part of me that has a lot of sympathy for Solskjaer because he's someone that I admire. He's a manager that when he speaks, it's total opposite to what we had with Jose Mourinho, where the dressing room became quite toxic and there was no United whatsoever. People were falling out with each other. You had Solskjaer coming out in the media publicly slamming players, and I don't think that's the right approach either. But then you also have Solskjaer, who comes out and he's always talking about his boys and his lads, and they're all fantastic, but they're not fantastic because they're not winning league titles, and that's what Manchester United should be doing. That's when you call your players fantastic, and it's trying to find a middle ground. And I was listening to Pochettino last night. He is the manager that I would have replaced Jose Mourinho with. But then at the time, after Solskjaer's initial run, we were all saying to give him the job. And that's where Ed Woodward comes into play, because he needs to make these big decisions. And it's him that it falls off on, because he signs off on the contract. He signs off on Solskjaer, and it has to fall back on him. He's the one, by the way, that should know more than any of us. He's the one making those decisions. He doesn't. We all know he doesn't. He hasn't got that football knowledge, but he should. He should know more than any of us. He should be making the right decisions, and he has made very few right decisions.
Yeah, like in his time at the club, he's made not one right decision, really. Like, again, Ed Woodward's a man who's just a puppet for the Glazers. Like, that's what he is. And at the end of the day, Glazeronomics are just going to strike until eventually, until they jump ship. And when will they ever do that, considering the money that they're making off the club? Why would they leave? Like, we have to take that a view from it, like, why would they leave with the amount of money they're taking out of the club? Seems to be kind of a cash cow for them at the moment.
Well, yeah, it's always been a commercial cash cow, and they obviously enjoy milking it with the dividends they've been taking out. But you also need to look at the direction in which English football and European football is heading. If this Super League does happen, it's the Glazers and it's the owners that are behind this, and the only reason they want this is money. So the Glazers are obviously viewing the next few years at a potential Super League, that there could be even more money in a firm. So do I see them selling up anytime soon? No, and they've never really shown any incentive to do that. I think there was whispers and there was interest in Saudi Arabia, but I don't think anyone in the right frame of mind that supports Manchester United would accept those owners either.
Too much baggage.
Too much baggage, too much blood money. You look into the human rights abuse and stuff like that. No, you don't want anyone like that. But then again, the Glazers aren't much better. You're talking about two evils, and sadly, football has been swamped. It's so much money. Manchester United are worth so much money now, and you kind of think, who out there's a good person that could afford Manchester United, and there's not many out there.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and look, I suppose before we look into the Istanbul game, like, look, it's just interesting to see now kind of what happens with Ollie now, because I think with the Everton game Sunday, if he loses that, especially with everything that's happened in the last week, he's going to be under even more pressure. The pressure is just going to build. Like, we're 15th in the league now. Like, we close to the relegation zone if we lose that game. Like, it's going to be tough for him, and it's not going to get any easier. And that's I suppose at the moment, that's the harsh reality for Ollie. And I'd love nothing more for that man to succeed because what he's done for our club, when he was a player. I'd love nothing more to see him to succeed, but at the moment it's just looking grim, and I just don't know if that's going to be possible. But look, I suppose time will tell.
Look, even if it doesn't work out, nothing happens to his legacy as a player. Nothing changes there, and nothing changes my admiration for him at all. He's come into a very, very difficult job, which I think is many aspects is an impossible job given the board he has to deal with and the owners. It's not quite in the same level as, say, Man City, who will go out and sign players and spend money to win league titles and back a manager with an idea. Let's not forget that when Pep Guardiola came in and he signed Bravo and he signed a bunch of, he signed one Spanish striker. Nolito, yeah, he signed 2 players and they didn't work out, and the reaction the following summer was to go out and spend big and buy better players. Now, in contrast to that, you had Jose Mourinho of Manchester United, who in his first summer, you had Lindelof and Eric Bailly come in, both came in for about 30 million, and the following summer he wasn't happy with his centre backs, and he went to the club and named out players like Toby Alderweireld, and Woodward didn't back him because he felt that, well, I spent 60 million worth of centre backs on you last summer and they haven't worked, so why should I trust you again? That is not the attitude that you want from your chief executive or whatever, because what's the point in keeping a manager in a job if you've already given up?
You only got a new contract a couple of months before that as well.
It's ridiculous, and it's penny pinching. It's penny pinching. Manchester, there's no excuse for Manchester United not to be competing in the transfer market with the biggest clubs, but unfortunately we're too busy servicing debt that was put on the club, nothing to do with the fans, nothing to do with the club itself. Greedy American family comes in, takes out money they can't afford and inflicts it on what we love. And when people speak out about the Glazers, the club don't like it. The club don't like it when the media speak out about figures and debt and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that can't be brushed under the carpet. They expect us to sit there and take this rubbish. You've already taken enough off us. And I don't know when it's going to stop, Keane. It's depressing because we grew up with Manchester United being a powerhouse and dominating English football, and I know that's not realistic for any football fan to be dominating for the spell that we had. There's no clubs that really do that, but a little bit of belief, a little bit that we can get back to the top next year or the year after. I just don't have it anymore. It's been sucked out of us.
Yeah, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I believe under this ownership, I don't feel confident we'll win another league title under this ownership with this current model that we have in the last 7 years. This continues, if nothing changes at board level, I don't think we're going to win another league, and I think that's a harsh reality that we kind of have at the moment. But look, enough about them. I'm sick of talking about them. I'm talking about them every day nearly since the transfer window started last in the summer. So I'm sick to death of them. I just want them gone, but look, it's never going to happen. Dale, looking ahead to the game of the Champions League this week against Istanbul Başakşehir, we're reunited with a man, who we were talking about players with lack of fight and lack of determination, but we're reunited with a player who showed a lot of that in a Manchester United shirt, Raphael. We're reunited with him this week, and look, it's a game where if we win, we have 1 foot in the knockout stages of the Champions League. How are you feeling about the game? You happy to see Raphael kind of come up against us, and do you have any kind of fond memories of Raphael in a Manchester United shirt?
Oh, loads. Against Liverpool when he went up against Tevez. He was someone that wore his heart on his sleeve, and the fans had a massive amount of affection for him. And still to this day, he loves Manchester United. I was speaking to Raphael just when the international draw was made, and he was just buzzing to be up against Manchester United and knowing he was coming back to Old Trafford. And it's players like that who, look, he was never the best right back in the world, but again, I mentioned players like Fred and McTominay that when you start them, they're going to put in 100% effort. And Raphael was a good player for Manchester United. He was a player that I think was slightly underrated by many. Louis van Gaal pushed him out with the club in a manner that he didn't deserve. He deserved a better send off than what he got. And then you think about the few years that we had after Raphael, and I think he would have started Manchester United right back because and before we had Wan-Bissaka, we were playing Antonio Valencia there, even when he was well past his best. Good serving for the club, but he wasn't a right back. And I think that's a big problem. We're talking about one of the biggest clubs in the world right now, and we're still, even to this day, we're shoehorning players into positions. And trying to get everyone in. And I mentioned already, team chemistry is vital. If you don't have that, you're not going to win football matches. You're not going to be consistent. You might win matches here and there, which is exactly what Manchester United do. The game against Arsenal was Solskjaer's 100th game. And I think, looking at it, I can't see a pattern in play under him. I can't see an identity at all yet. And even I could see a little glimpses of it from Arteta's Arsenal. I could see something developing. And he hasn't even had 100 games yet. But that's probably the positive for me going into this game that we're coming up against Raphael. There's not much to be positive about right now. We should win the game. On paper, we should be sweeping the floor with these guys. But on paper, we should be sweeping the floor with most of the teams we played against this season. And we failed to do that. So, look, are we a cup team so far this season? It looks like it. But if Solskjaer doesn't improve his form in the league, he won't be able to enjoy that spell in the Champions League that he's working towards.
Yeah, I suppose I think that's probably the only positive that we can take. That look at, I suppose, reuniting Raphael, and we have good memories of the man at the club, and he was someone who always did wear his heart in his sleeve. For me, it's literally, I suppose, it's get the game done with, get the 90 minutes over with, and look at the Sunday, because Sunday is the most important game this week. Like we can afford, I suppose not even that we can afford, but we can rest players this week. I think in this Champions League game, I think we can bring in Alex Nemanja Matic, who didn't play on Sunday, though I think we could bring in Martial comes back in by default, and he didn't play the weekend. Maybe Axel will probably get a game tomorrow, because he did shine in that game against PSG. I'd like to see him and get more minutes in a Manchester United shirt. But really with Sunday, I think maybe Ollie might have one eye on Sunday tomorrow. In terms of like the team he's gonna pick. I'm just gonna come to you with that, Dale. Like you have to make like a starting 11 prediction for tomorrow. Like who do you think should be in the lineup tomorrow?
Well, Solskjaer definitely needs to have one eye on the game against Everton, 100%, because the league form is so bad. And I think maybe he can, but he should be able to rest a few players tomorrow night and get a result. We're playing against a team from Turkey. We're Man United. They're not even the best team in Turkey. We should be able to rest players, should be able to give the likes of even Daniel James a run. I know people criticize Daniel James, but these are the games that I think he should be playing in. Cavani needs a start. Can he come on and do something? Because I know he was poor against Arsenal, but it's also very, very difficult for players. I know people say he's only after coming to club, but it's very difficult to come into a new team when you're not playing a lot and to be expected to hit the ground running, because a lot of players, they build on form when they play week in, week out. So there's too much chopping and changing in this team for starters. We're not set on one starting 11. I know we've had injuries and suspensions and so on, but if I was to go for a starting 11, David De Gea in goal, because we've stuck with him in the Champions League so far, and there's no reason to change that if that's the route we're going down. I think a right back, maybe bring in Fosu Mensah. He hasn't played in a few weeks, and I think we do need to start thinking about our league form. We have 1 foot in qualifications for group stage, but saying that we can't let that slip. We can't afford to lose tomorrow night. and then be totally on a downer after beating two really good teams in Europe and losing to Istanbul. Again, that would spread even more uncertainty over Solskjaer if he's not able to get a result tomorrow night. At centre back, I would go with Tanzebi and Maguire. Left back, Luke Shaw, because Tellez still isn't. It hasn't travelled to Turkey. He's not 100% yet. Midfield, I think that's every week now we play. That's the big talking point, because we've so many midfielders, and Solskjaer seems so uncertain about what his best fit is. I would like to see Juan Mata start with Bruno Fernandes, because when they do play together, there seems to be chemistry. Everything that's not in the team when Pogba plays. I think when Matic starts, we have a lot more balance. We have a lot more security in front of that defence. We seem a lot more assured when he does start. But the big problem there is he's at the wrong side of his 30s, and he can't play 2 games every week. So that's a big problem. I know we spoke with McTominay, and he's good, but Matic is the player that when he starts, it seems to settle the whole midfield. My midfield 3, I'll go back to the basics, by the way, about the system we usually play against this team, because I am making changes to the starting 11 and bringing players in. Midfield 3, like I said, is Matic, Mata and Fernandes. And then up front, I will go with Cavani at wide, Martial through the centre, and not James. I'll go Greenwood on the right.
Yeah, like there's a few changes you made there, and players who could come in and maybe stake a claim for the weekend. There's a couple of players like a Juan Mata who can maybe come in and maybe stake a claim. I suppose for me, David De Gea in goal, and again, look, since Dean Henderson's come back from Sheffield United, though that seems to have pushed David De Gea kind of rediscover some form. He has seemed to be playing better in the Manchester United shirt this season compared to last, when me and you were nearly tearing our hair out towards the end of last season, when the amount of mistakes he was making. Myself and yourself, I remember we were cracking up. But, look, it's good to see that since Henderson's come in, there's someone who is going to knock on all these doors in case David De Gea, isn't putting his weight up. He has a player who can put him under pressure. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka will start. Maybe good to see maybe Fosu-Mensah maybe come in and maybe give Aaron Wan-Bissaka a well-deserved rest, because he's been good the last couple of games. But I'd say Ollie might push with Wan-Bissaka at right back. In 2 centre halves, I'm going to go with Tuanzebe and Maguire. Again, Axel played absolutely fantastic against PSG, and it was for someone who was first game in 10 months. Still, he really did show what centre half we could have in the future if he stays injury free. I think we have a player there. Again, Luke Shaw just gets in by default, because as we all know, like Tellez is recovering from COVID at the moment. Hopefully he gets well soon. But when he gets well, I'd like to see him in a left back for us. My midfield 3, I'm going to go with Matic. I'm going to go with Fred. I'm going to go with Donny van de Beek. I'd like to give Bruno a rest with a view on Saturday. I'd like to give Bruno a rest with a view to the weekend, because we need a fully fit and firing Bruno Fernandes the weekend. I just don't want to risk him. Up front, I'm going to go with Mason Greenwood, Martial and Cavani. I'm going to go with that same front 3. I think Marcus is another player who I think we need to wrap up in cotton wool for the weekend, because he's now in exceptional form as well. But I think that team is more than enough to want to beat Istanbul. I'm probably a cup.
Of course it is. We can't this whole thing about this is Champions League fixture we're talking about, but really we're playing against a team that would usually be or could be in the Europa League. We should be able to afford to rest players for this one. We have to have one eye on the weekend, because our league form it drastically needs to improve. And I think if we drop points against Everton, I think the questions we have about Solskjaer now, is his future uncertain? I think they will most certainly be uncertain if he drops points against Everton. And again, I've said already, I don't want him sacked. I want things to work out. I'd love to see things work out. What I can't understand is we bet RB Leipzig hammered them last week. Wiped the floor with one of the best teams in Germany, known for high pressing, and we dealt with that so well. We were really, really good against them. And I think everyone was optimistic after that game. What I can't understand is, and I know we haven't had a good start to the season, but it was vicious after the game against Arsenal. When I logged on to social media, people were really calling for Solskjaer's head, and I have to ask those people. A few days prior to that, those people weren't saying that. They were happy. They were buzzing. They were going into the Arsenal game thinking we're gonna hammer him, and it has to fall down to coaching. It has to fall down to a number of factors because the players aren't carrying the weight. We know these players are a lot better than what they're showing. You know, Marcus Rashford is doing every week. He's working hard. His performances slightly dipped at the end of last season and took a while to gain momentum this year. But let's not forget the serious injury he had also that kept him out for months. You know, that's a serious injury. So he wasn't 100%. We have Martial coming back in, and we really need him coming back and banging in goals like he did last season because we need someone to start doing it. There's no, like, we talk about we're struggling against the low block. That's because that has to be down to coaching. Because there's really good attacking players, that team. You brought in Cavani, you have Marcus Rashford, you have Anthony Martial, Bruno Fernandes, Donny van de Beek is signed. We've mentioned Paul Pogba because he's a World Cup medal. Why can't we get a system going to make that work? Because I've named out players there that some of the top teams in the world would jump out at, excluding Pogba, of course, at the moment. But the likes of Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, and all these players, there's managers out there that would beg and give their arms to be able to work with and to manage and to implement into their teams. So Solskjaer has to look at and find something. And if that means upsetting a few players by letting them out, he's got to do it because otherwise he'll be the one that's upset and he'll be the one that'll be sacked. And let's not forget too, if you are sacked as Manchester United manager for the form we've just shown this season, it's going to be very difficult to get another job.
At the top level, most definitely. At the top level, like you look at this with a view that obviously if he unfortunately parts ways with United, where is he going to get a job in the Premier League? Realistically, like what club in the top, let's say, top 10 in the league, who hires Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because let's not forget his CV before Manchester United was Molde and Cardiff. So who's going, like at the top level, who's going to come in and maybe hire Ole? He might have a saving grace where he might go back and to like some Molde or someone like that, someone at that level. But again, as you said, it'd be very hard, especially if the circumstances surrounding if you get sacked. Like look at David Moyes, for example, when he got sacked from Manchester United. What was his next job after that? You know, like it wasn't a massive job. Like even Everton, who he done fantastic with, didn't want to look at him. You know, so it is a very pressurized time for Rolly with regards to this. And Dale, just the final point of the night is regards to obviously this Premier League title race. In the first time in years, looks like we won the most open title races in recent memory. And you know, obviously Liverpool have lost Virgil van Dijk unfortunately to injury. You have the emergence of Everton at the moment, you know, who seem to be a team on the up. Manchester City, their form is kind of flip-flopping at the moment. Leicester City again last night, you know, had a fantastic performance against Bielsa's Leeds. And there's other little teams in there, obviously, though, Tottenham, who are flourishing under Mourinho at the moment. They seem to be doing quite well in the league, and they're picking up points in games where they didn't last season. Do you believe this is like one of the most open title races in recent years? And do you think is there any kind of standout team who you believe who might, you know, maybe push on and maybe they'll become the favourites this season?
I think it is extremely open. It's so open that it even kills me more we've started the season where we have. Because I think the team is good enough to compete for this title. It could be doing a lot better. The league so far has been so open. Teams dropping points, show no consistency. And I think when I seen Van Dijk get injured and Liverpool started the season, I was kind of feeling that maybe City could push on now and win the title again. But they've been very inconsistent too. I think I don't think they've been great. People are saying they might get back into the swing of things, but they're not brushing teams away like the City that did 2-3 years ago. They're not that convincing. I think Liverpool will win it again. That also depends a lot on can they keep their other key players injury free and not lose them for a sustained period of time, because Van Dijk is a massive blow. We'll probably see that in Europe. They will struggle against the best teams in Europe, I think, this season. But the league, I can't see anyone really competing with them. Leicester look good at the moment, but Leicester, they also looked good last season, and then towards the end of the campaign, they totally thrown that away. And we're talking about Pochettino. I'm not saying that I ever want Brendan Rodgers to manage Manchester United, but I do think if there was a conversation to be had, that he does belong in the conversation, because the job he has done there has been very, very impressive, and it hasn't just been 1 year. It's been something he's built on. Where Leicester finished in the season in the table last season was a respectable position for Leicester, and they look really good again this year. They're not only that, but he seems to change his system quite a bit. They're playing a back three now, and they're doing that really well. So he's a brave manager.
He's adaptable.
He's adaptable, yeah. And I think you need to be adaptable, especially with the team that we have, and we have so many good players. But it still seems that every manager we've had since Alex Ferguson hasn't been able to find the right team. So look, it's not always the big names you need. What we need is someone at the club that has a vision and can get the right manager in to back up that vision. That could be Pochettino. It could be looking at us right in the face, but it could also be Solskjaer. But I don't think the board is there backing him. And I don't think he's been given a fair crack at the whip. I know I do think he has the players to do a lot better, but it's just deflating. It's deflating, Keane.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Before we go, Dale, I'd like to get a score prediction from you for tomorrow for the Istanbul game. How do you think it's going to play out tomorrow?
I'm going to say 2-0 Man United. I think we'll get back to winning ways. I don't know how long that lasts. I'm not expecting a consecutive run of wins, because I jumped on an Arsenal podcast last week and I stupidly predicted a 3-0 win for Manchester United. And I also promised that I go on the podcast immediately after the game. So that was I was eating some humble pie. 2-0. I'm not planning on going on any Turkish football podcast tomorrow night. So
I was on Adam's show, you were on Adam's show as well recently, and I was on his show Friday night, and I was after having a few bottles at this stage before I went on to the show, and I predicted 3-0 Man United as well. And
well, at least you have alcohol to blame. I didn't have any alcohol in my system, and I still said it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a comment in there from Steve McGrath. He said, agree with Dale there. I think all he can do is support and give him proper time.
It's the thing is, Keane, is football fans, we're always christened with being impatient. And a lot of fans look at the short term and want quick success. But there's also a lot of fans out there that are patient, that are willing to wait if they can see the progress. And that's the branch I'm singing from with Solskjaer. I have seen positives. I've also seen negatives. I'm not going to say that it's all been rosy in the gardens. There have been things that I've really questioned. For instance, Pogba should have been taken off at the weekend. Before that penalty, I was shouting for it. And then after the penalty, brought off Bruno Fernandes. So I know he wasn't having a good game, but decisions like that really puzzle me, as well as taking off Fred and bringing on Matic. We needed a goal. That substitution is like for like. It's not going to get you a goal. So, look, there's things there, but I am one of the more patient ones, and I would love nothing more to see Solskjaer turn things around. But it's getting to the stage now where I think he's running out of time, sadly, and he's going to be another victim of a really, really poorly run football club.
Yeah, absolutely. And Glazeronomics will continue for foreseeable future, it looks like. Just before I go, my score prediction, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Manchester United win. I think we'll grind it out. We'll do a professional performance. We will see it through, and I suppose we'll have a view on Sunday then at that point. And Dale, in terms of your own podcast, I understand you brought back the Stretty cast recently, and you recently went through the Arsenal game. Do you have any plans for any content coming soon?
Yeah, we have a Guardian journalist on the podcast next week. Jamie Jackson's brought out a new book on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on his first 2 years in charge. So yeah, I'm delighted to be back podcasting again. I had to take a break, late getting back into the swing of things. But thanks for having me on again tonight, Keane. I always appreciate the chat. No
problem at all, Dale. Thanks very much for coming on. Look, hopefully next time we have you on, be much more positive times for us Manchester United fans. Look, cheers for coming on tonight. And look, we are back Thursday. Callum McFadden is hosting the Devil's Advocate show for the first time. this week. So he is new faces on the show this week. So that is going to be a great show, and please do tune in for that. And again, look, we will be back on tomorrow as well. The London show is live tomorrow as well, hosted by Jamie Mackie Murphy again. So again, look, plenty of content to roll out. So look, cheers lads, cheers for everything, and we'll talk to you soon.